Another major bank, Silicon Valley Bank, has collapsed. It was also the second biggest FDIC bank to ever collapse in the history of banking, right behind Washington Mutual. This bank was massive, in the top 20 banks in America, and today it's getting bailed out. But this story isn't over, because what's happening right now is affecting a lot of other banks. And this one specifically was going to potentially hurt and take down a lot of other companies. Companies like Roku, Roblox, Etsy, Vimeo, Vox Media, and even Circle. Circle kept $3.3 billion with this bank. That was money that was supposed to be pegged to the dollar for USDC, a crypto stablecoin which became unstable and fell from $1 to 87 cents. For the world of stablecoins, that is catastrophic. This is another one of those banks that, unless you lived in San Francisco and worked for a tech startup, you might be wondering, how come I've never heard of this bank before in my life? And that's because the majority of this bank's clientele were startups and venture-backed tech and healthcare companies. Now, at its peak, SV Bank claimed to bank nearly half of all the venture-backed startup companies in the US. So if you happen to work for a startup, especially in tech or healthcare, there's a good chance that your company and its payroll was connected to this bank. And on Friday of last week, the FDIC raided their office and shut them down. But today, they've been bailed out. It's an interesting story that's leaving behind even more interesting questions like, will other banks be affected, and how does a 40-year-old bank that was voted to be one of the best banks in America for 5 straight years collapse the week before it was voted to be on this list? Let's rewind. In 1983, somewhere in San Jose, SVB opened their first office catering to tech startups. In 1986, they merged with National Intercity Bancorp and the stock went public in the NASDAQ chart in 1988. Now fast forward to 2020 and 2021, the pandemic. There was a massive influx of cheap money. Hundreds of billions of dollars made possible by low interest rates to fuel funding for tech startups. Names like Cathie Wood were dominating the industry. Cruise, Rivian, and Robinhood were at the top of the funding rounds, and the venture capital business was booming. Over $330 billion of venture capital was raised for startups in 2021, which was almost double what they got in 2020. Thanks to this almost FOMO-like investment, SV Bank's deposits went from $48 billion in 2018 to over $200 billion at the peak. A 4.5 times growth rate in just a few years was unlike anything the major commercial banks had seen in those same years. But the question is still, how does the 16th biggest bank in the US collapse almost overnight? And the answer is bonds and liquidity. What do you do when you're a bank and you have hundreds of billions of dollars in customer deposits sitting in your accounts? You don't just keep the cash, you invest it to earn a little bit of interest, which is exactly what all the banks are doing now. Most banks are parking their deposits into treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities, and that's exactly what they did. But every major prominent player on Wall Street, including Goldman Sachs, was misdirected by the illusion of what the Fed was telling them, which is that they would not raise what's called the federal funds rate until at least the next few years. Estimates were as far out as 2023, 2024, and even as far out as 2025, but all of them were wrong. Remember, in 2020 and 2021, it looked like interest rates could stay close to zero so we could stimulate and grow the economy. None of the banks wanted to believe that inflation could get as bad and as sticky as it got. So in 2021, SV Bank made a bet that interest rates would stay low for a really long time. That's when they took their clients' money and invested it into treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities with long-term maturities. But so was every other bank in America. So does that mean other banks might fail as well? Let me explain, but first a quick word from today's sponsor. Did you know that roughly 10 billion business cards are printed each year, which is debated to use anywhere between 500,000 to 7 million trees per year, which is so wasteful? Now, true story, in 2017, this right here was my business card. I spent a couple $100 to print about 1,000 of these, which was such a waste of money because no one ever called me. I know, I still think about that to this day. It's very sad. And it makes sense why most people won't remember you because it only has your name and contact info, and 9 out of 10 paper business cards are thrown away within a week. So wouldn't it be nice if you could have one business card that wasn't wasteful, wasn't expensive, and actually made an impact? Turns out there is one. Ovu. OVO is the best way to make connections and build your network. It's a smart business card that allows you to exchange your contact info and make an impression with just a tap. It has a special chip inside that makes the magic happen and works with any modern smartphone. As soon as you tap your client's phone, your profile will pop up on their browser where they can save your contact info, including your social media, and there are no special apps required. And it makes it easier for you to get their contact details too. You'll start with a blank slate and design and fully customize what you want your card to look like. But just remember, magic tricks are not included. You can log into your OVO account to change and update any information at any point you want. All you need is one card to build your leads, nurture those connections, and make an impression. Go to ovo.com, use the coupon code MAGIC to get 10% off. Thank you, OVO, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now let's get back to it. Normally, earning a little bit of interest by parking your client's money into treasury bonds is business as usual, unless interest rates go up and your clients lose confidence in your bank and they want to withdraw. And that's exactly what ended up happening. As the story of inflation started to take over the economy in 2022, the Federal Reserve was forced to stop its quantitative easing policy of buying mortgage-backed securities and treasury bonds, what the internet referred to as the infinite money glitch machine. Instead, the Fed had to pivot and lower inflation by raising interest rates and selling off their assets, which is part of something called quantitative tightening. That's when rates went from effectively zero at the start of 2022 to over 4% by the end of that year. This meant that anyone who bought bonds before the rates went up experienced a huge paper loss. But there was another side effect. Startup funding was drying up, and when the money faucet stops, the cash burn rate still continues. And if you're a tech company that's unprofitable, that means you have to tap into your bank account and withdraw some cash. Now, normally for a bank, that should be fine. They could just sell some of their assets and pay up. In fact, even if the value of those bonds, called the par value, becomes worth less on the secondary market, it shouldn't matter because the goal is to keep those bonds for the duration of their maturity because the bank would get all of their money back plus interest. But if you have to process withdrawals you no longer have, that means you have to sell some of those assets. But in this case, because they were long-term maturity bonds, they were now worth a lot less than what customers were owed. That meant they had to raise money. That's when SV Bank announced that they sold $21 billion worth of bonds and mortgage-backed securities at a $1.8 billion loss. They tried to raise over $2 billion to make up for it, but that failed. This scared all of their clients, which started to withdraw their money all at once. $42 billion was withdrawn in a single day. That's what lit the fuse, and by the time they tried to find a buyer, it was too late, and now we have to face the potential consequences. But who needs consequences when there are bailouts? Just yesterday, the regulators announced that there will be a bailout for SV Bank, and this is extremely good news considering how many of their clients and startups were potentially going to get hurt. Before this bailout, the FDIC gave workers only 45 days of full employment, and for clients, they would only get access up to the FDIC insurance limit of $250,000. But anyone who had more was only getting a certificate of receivership, basically an IOU with no other guarantees. That would have affected 97.3% of their clients, which were not fully insured. Thousands of startups and their futures were potentially on the line, but as of today, all the funds will be made available for withdrawal. But there's still one big question left. Stablecoins. That's because USDC fell from $1 to 87 cents before it fully recovered after the bailout was announced. This is one of the biggest questions in all of crypto that's still left, at least to me. Are stablecoins really worth $1? Think about it. If a stablecoin value is shown to be less than $1 on the secondary market, that shouldn't matter because that just means someone panic sold. But if you go directly to the company issuing those stablecoins to get your withdrawal, provided that company has enough cash on hand, they should be able to service most withdrawals at a 1-to-1 ratio. Not all of them, of course, but hopefully most of them to keep the value stable at 1-to-1 despite what the secondary market shows. But would that have happened? That's a question we were supposed to figure out the answer to today, but I'm kind of glad we didn't. The truth is, every single bank in America has parked their deposits into mortgage-backed securities and treasury bonds, which have taken on a beating. And theoretically, if enough people start to question their bank's validity and go to withdraw their money all at once, then theoretically, this can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time, unless the government bails them out. And speaking of the bailout, who's paying for it? Shareholders will not be reimbursed, but the government has promised that this bailout will not come at the expense of taxpayers. Instead, it will be paid by the FDIC's Deposit Insurance Fund, which is paid for by the banks. Now, technically, there is a risk for taxpayers to indirectly pay for these banks' losses in the form of banks reacting by increasing their banking service fees. But that's just speculation, and no one knows for sure how things will play out. But either way, the point is, there was a really bad crisis that was averted just today, at least for now. Thankfully, the major commercial banks are fine for now as they have stricter rules to follow with things like Basel III, guided by liquidity coverage ratios, so they're more protected. But that doesn't mean that they're 100% safe from bank runs either. Hopefully, this contagion will not reach those major commercial banks, but who knows? We'll still feel ripple effects throughout the economy, which seems as though that's exactly what the Fed planned all along when they decided to raise those interest rates. At the end of the day, it kind of blows my mind that 97% of their clients were sophisticated tech people, and most of them didn't think to separate their accounts into $250K amounts so they could be FDIC insured. So please stay safe, be careful, be vigilant. In the meantime, I want you to have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to grab your free stocks, links are down below, and then go track them automatically with the spreadsheet link down below in my Patreon. Love you. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to see you back here on Monday, Friday, sometimes Wednesday. See you soon. Bye-bye.